Saturday, the 9th of April, 2011. My body is sore and my eyes are tired. I have a splitting headache. It was an exceptionally hard day in the kitchen today. I had several big and violent outbursts. There were loud arguments with many of the kitchen staff, and to be honest, it nearly got physical. There's no room for a day on autopilot. Guests expect more, I expect more. At one point during the battle, I checked out for a second and the scene of service unfolded in front of me. Everybody was running to catch up, sweaty and dripping, their faces flushed red with exertion and heat, eyes bulging with panic. I was brought back when I heard a cook shouting, "Chef, chef, I fucking burned myself. It's really bad. I've hot oil all over my fingers." As I watched all the blisters erupt on his hand, I threw myself back into service. What a fucking crap day. It's in the top 3 of all-time bad days. The toil of service is like an ever-hungry monster that must be fed, and we have to constantly push ourselves to keep one step ahead. Today, the monster caught up with us. During the post-service meeting, we looked at each other in the eye, talking about the problems, shuffled a bit in the light with our arms crossed. The silent promise was palatable. Tomorrow we'll do better. And tack for a day, thank you for today, with a few high fives, the sincere way in which we should always end the day. But after a day like today, I think most of our staff, including myself, ask, why? Why the fuck are we here? Why have we chosen to cook for a living? I sat looking over the harbor, having an indulgent cigarette. Who the hell once said, at the end of the day, it's just food? I have to believe there's a bit more than just providing 40 people with sustenance. Monday, the 7th of February, 2011. Am I okay? It's a good question, one that Nadine, my wife, posed to me on a bitterly cold day almost 4 months ago. Last year should have felt smashing. Noma had been named the world's best restaurant. I'd put out a book. Nobody could cook from it, but it was selling really well. We were full every day, lunch and dinner. Yet still, with all that, there was Nadine one morning. René, you look exhausted. Are you okay? Her question sunk in as the zombie stared back at me in the mirror. Was I okay? The question lingered all day at work. I have every fucking reason to be more than perfectly fucking okay, I told myself. I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. I got up to brush my teeth and I stood with my hands on the cold sink. I don't think I'm okay. The moment I admitted this, melancholy washed over me. I didn't go to work that day. I didn't even call the restaurant. I couldn't move. I didn't feel like doing another 16-hour shift. I wasn't okay. Hello, my name is René Redzepi. And thank you. And what I just read to you was 2 entries out of many from a journal that I wrote in 2011. I'm also here to present this book, the journal. It's a 3-volume book that's called A Work in Progress. I started writing this journal because I was in a funk. And I wanted to see if I could understand our creative processes a bit more. At first, I didn't tell anybody, like you heard up there. I was too embarrassed. But I had to sort of get out of this moment that I was in. But writing a journal? I mean, I don't know how many of you spend your days in kitchens like I do, but in a kitchen, that's like delinquents and semi-criminals there. Tattooed men and women. I can't. Sorry, boys, I'm going to leave 10 minutes early. I have to go and write in my journal. No, man. But I did it. I wrote the journal. And boy, did it change things for me. For a restaurant. Incredibly. I went from being a little unafraid, 11-year-old, to being here. I'm going to read some more entries so that you get a feeling for what's going on in this journal. Only a very few entries I'm going to read to you. But so I can introduce a bit more of what's happening here. Wednesday the 16th and Thursday the 17th of February. The frost is crippling. The wind is blowing from the east and our dear green plants are suffocating in the snow, left to die. We should have known it's like this every fucking year. Disclaimer, there will be a lot of swearing. The moment we convince ourselves that winter is over, it knocks us down again. The icy shards biting into our faces as we cycle to work, it just pisses you off. The stupidity of everything gone wrong. Calm down, René, I had to tell myself again and again. My blood was rising as I got changed and I fantasized about choking one of the fucking weather gods to death. With almost no products to work with, we tried to tackle some broader concepts that could nudge us forward. We were searching for a way to outwit this crazy winter. Trying to harness some of our creative processes, as this journal is meant to do, makes me reflect a bit more how the situations we're in affect our thinking. And it occurs to me that one of the constant themes of winter, year in and year out, is waste. Because we have so little to work with during winter, what we throw in the bin causes us real pain. We made fun of it so many times, cooking out of the trash bin, trash cooking. But it was always meant to be a good joke, even though for ethical reasons, I love that idea of wasting nothing. But for it to actually become a guide to deliciousness, well, you have to restrain yourself, for it can take you down some unconventional paths. Wednesday, the 6th of July. More lamb heads came in today. It's a special sensation standing there with a cappuccino, your body aching and slowly coming to life when you suddenly realize that a few hours ago, these lambs probably also had a good start to the day. Torsten can barely look at the brains and becomes rather white and sickly as soon as they're yanked out the skull. He certainly won't taste any, which is a worrying sign, for if one of our veterans isn't game enough to try them, especially considering his larger than usual catalog of what's edible, I wonder if we're just wasting our time working with this offal. There's certainly plenty of diners who will feel the same way that he does. But we spent the day pursuing the secrets of the brains to find out how such a thing works in cooking. It turns out that brains actually contain the highest percentage of fat of any cut, and therefore they're not like any other types of meat or offal, which gets firmer and sometimes drier with prolonged cooking. Brains just fall apart in an unpleasant way. And they have a texture somewhere between foie gras and fish sperm. And there are many than a few members of staff that has a hard time swallowing them. So we decided to work what we called a brain spread, either served as an intermezzo in the menu in a little warm cocotte, bubbling away with different condiments next to perhaps a stack of thinly sliced grilled bread. Or maybe cooked and lightly squeezed into a butter ramekin so that it looks as though it's about to burst out. You know, something different for the bread. There was even this crazy idea that we should crack the skull open, take the brain out, cook it, clean the cracked skull, put the cooked brain back in, and have that skull be the vessel that's brought to the table. Now, it was said out loud as one of those things that's half joke, half serious. Everybody's basically a bunch of weirdos, so the first reaction from the boys was, "We should try this, chef." Usually, no problem, I'm up for anything, but this time I'm a bit dubious. I can't imagine what the reaction would be. One thing is certain though, Most people want to eat the deliciously cooked flesh carved from a freshly slaughtered mammal as long as there's nothing that reminds them it's an animal. But I won't hold the boys back. If there's something they want to try, go ahead, go crazy. After all, the best discoveries are hidden somewhere in between all the insanity. There's one thing, though, that we can be very, very, very clear about. A thing so hideous, it should never be mentioned again. Dried brains. It is off the charts, absolutely disgusting. In fact, there are not enough words in any vocabulary to explain it thoroughly. We thought it would be like bacon. At least that was the idea, a thin slice cooked until crisp. We were so certain it would work, and we're already considering what to accompany the newly discovered chips with. But it was horrifying. The only time I've been more revolted was when I saw a young kid on a beautiful beach putting his whole finger up his ass, only to taste it seconds later. I'm sure he's growing up to achieve much greatness. Nonetheless, we are definitely going ahead with the brain spread, perhaps smoked. This journal entry was one of many, plus a billion of the failures that we have throughout the year at Noma. It's insane. But before I wrote the journal, I would allow a lot of these failures to get to us. I thought there was something wrong with us, with me, the team. You know, it was always push us into some sort of collective melancholy. Again, envision in the kitchen, in a corner, all these big, strong, tough, tattooed boys and girls feeling totally inadequate of themselves in silence. It doesn't work. But then I wrote the journal, and then I just simply realized that if we're not failing, we're not pushing hard enough. And this was an idea that I had thought about for many years before writing the journal, but only when I started actually writing the journal, it started making total sense that it would be cool, fun to organize a symposium that's made by the restaurant trade, for the restaurant trade, as a place to meet, talk, cross-pollinate cultures, and see where is our trade going and what are we going to do with all the issues it faces. So we had planned year one to be on vegetation, and we had no clue, seriously no clue about what we were doing. In fact, I accidentally hired a regular that was a banker as the organizer of the symposium. It turned out well, actually. He helped fund it. And so what happened is that on the day of the Mad Symposium, this thing that we've been planned and spent all our money, and there's hundreds of people flying in from all over the world, scientists, chefs, all sorts of things, huge. It became something mega. One of the worst storms came in over Copenhagen, and at 5 o'clock in the morning we went out to see it, and the tent had fallen. And there was total fucking chaos and panic, and everybody was running around not knowing what to do. So I'm going to read one of many entries about the symposium. Many. This is from day 2 of the symposium. Sunday, 28th of August, 2011. How'd everybody sleep, I asked. Fucking amazing, chef. We're so pumped for today. So am I answered, and we stood for a minute or so just enjoying the coffee, the light breeze, and the morning sky. I broke the silence, trying to start the day's briefing. Guys, let's just do what we did yesterday. But then I was interrupted. We have a big problem. The toilets aren't working, Ali, he stuttered, with a roll of toilet paper in his hand. What the fuck you done to them, one of the guys joked. Peter quickly broke in. Mud and rain is one thing, but nowhere to shit, that's a real issue. I think he was trying to be serious, but everybody burst out laughing. What's a toilet against the elements, I thought to myself. I'll handle it, Peter said. Now, let's just get ready. The word about the symposium had burst across Copenhagen yesterday, and today even more people flooded in, the tent bulging with guests, filling up the stairs, the empty spaces in front of the stage, every last nook and cranny occupied. It was boiling, steaming, seething with people, and the noise and the energy of such a big crowd packed into the little tent was insane. It puzzles me how effortlessly the talks have gone, as initially that was my biggest worry. Sure, there's been hiccups. The sound went at one point, and the DVD player malfunctioned during one presentation. Stuff like that, small things. But a real story has been told about the natural world, how it works, how you cook it, issues it faces, historical perspective, and the question of its future. It was a strong narrative from the first speaker, science writer Thor Nørtranders, to Peruvian chef Gaston Acurio's dynamic conclusion today. I particularly enjoyed Brazilian chef Alex Atala's talk. He came up on stage and he put his two hands to his chest and he said loud, "My name is Alex Atala. I ask you, why don't we eat insects?" Something happened to me as I stood and listened in silence, eagerly awaiting his next words. He paused for a good 15 seconds, allowing people to reflect on his question, and then started passing out what looked like little candies of sort. I looked closely. They were no bigger than sugar cubes, but in the center of each was a huge Amazonian ant. Around the room, people were giggling nervously, telling themselves, this is a joke, right? I put it in my mouth and started chewing, letting the flavors grow until a powerful hit of lemongrass filled my whole mouth. But in a new and different way that wasn't exactly like eating that familiar plant. Hard to describe. Yet why don't we eat insects, I thought. These flavors are too good to miss. There were so many moments like this throughout the day where presenters spoke on new and original ideas. But the fact that in under 30 minutes I had changed my perspective and was thinking, bugs, why not? Was worth the whole symposium. One little seed planted, a new inspiration, a new layer to our work, which reminds me of the title of Italian chef Massimo Bottura's talk, "We should never stop planting." It feels weird now, Ali told me as we looked at all the guests eating at the after party. Like something is missing. I should be happy, but I feel depressed. It's over. I know exactly what he was talking about. The last 3 days have been so insane, filled with every emotion known to man. I gave him a little shake and smiled. "Why are you depressed? I have this huge sense of accomplishment." He shrugged his shoulders. "I'm going to get fucking drunk," walking towards the bar. It was turning out to be a real party now, with people shoving chairs out the way and voices loud, happy, and slurred. As I quietly walked away, I told myself, no way. I have to get some sleep. On Tuesday, Michel Brun is eating with us. I started these things as a way to train chef. I believe that intuition and sensibility, intuition, that's where innovation comes in, and sensibility is where flavor comes in. I think those are the two biggest tools for a cook, and this was meant to be a place to train them. And it works. It really, really works. You have to imagine on a Saturday night, we've just finished a long week, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and at that moment, that's when the pressure is at its highest point. And everybody just loves it. It's pretty amazing. And some of the people that's been with me the longest, that do this week by week, their sensibilities, their intuition, if I could flesh it out to a real person, they would look like Mike Tyson's. They're so good in making those split decisions that are so critical. When you work with ingredients, you just pop in every day and you don't really know what's going to happen. But actually, maybe the most incredible thing about Saturday Night Projects, which I only realized after I wrote this journal and I went back to it, and this is probably something that our last 3 years of success is based on as well. And the Saturday Night Projects made everything more fun. Fun. Thursday, 23rd of June. I spent the whole day in the test kitchen. We decided to step away from the cucumber dessert for a while. We need to raise the mood a bit. My gut's telling me that the team can deal with more failure. That's another mysterious thing, failure. And how to deal with it. A group of young, eager cooks from around the world can feel so broken by lack of progress. You try out an idea, it doesn't work, you feel disappointed, you have a new one, but that doesn't work either, and so it continues. Until maybe, eventually, something is achieved. Most of the time, one idea takes days of trial and error, and I guess the real key to success is how you handle the period from the beginning to the very end. You can actually see it in people's eyes. At first, there's this sparkle as they eagerly tell the team about the thing they've been thinking about. It's something so personal, it takes guts to share it. Everyone wonders, am I good enough? But with the right team, you can build an atmosphere of confidence and trust in which each member feels secure enough to put themselves out there. But still, when the end result isn't working, you see disappointment for a moment, maybe even fear, because after all, not trying is the easiest thing to do. It's not surprising then when their eyes go dull and, like a newspaper press, one moment they're filled with noise and roaring production, and the next moment when somebody switches them off, their mechanism stalls to a halt, silence. Tuesday, November 1st. I've been waiting like a child for this day, Trevor exclaimed in a very, very fat Irish accent. The news quickly spread through the kitchen. They're here, everyone shouted to each other, leaving their half-filleted fish on cutting boards and running to the test kitchen. Come on, Trevor, Rosio said as he peeled layer after layer of tape off the package. Open the fucking box already. And with a final wrench, he pulled the top off, and we all peered down at the little plastic container, swarming with ants. Trevor was the first to dare. He took a live ant and popped it in his mouth. We all watched, wide-eyed, in silence as he chewed, registering every little thing that happened in his mouth. It took him 2 or 3 seconds to go from skeptical and concentrated to convinced and excited. Oh my God, he said. They're so strong, holy shit. They taste like lemongrass. All around him, people were starting to giggle and chatter. Isn't it bitter? One person asked. Did it make you gag? Trevor picked up another one. No, they're really good. We're onto something. Everyone's hands collided as we all reached for a taste. And as I was staring an ant in the eyes, the little head wriggling and the legs moving around vigorously, I told myself, this is a shrimp. Think of it as a shrimp. In fact, it's even prettier than a shrimp. I placed it on my tongue and it immediately started to run around my mouth, tickling. At that point, I could already taste the lemongrass. I gave it a gentle chew and then the explosion came. A burst of citrus and ginger as well, or lovage, maybe the perfect mixture of all three. My mind isn't made up yet, but it's definitely like nothing I've ever tasted in my life. Next day, Wednesday, 2nd of November. Trevor served the first few for lunch. Beforehand, we'd agreed that while we were describing the fresh herb garden bouquets to the table, we would covertly add the crème fraîche dotted with ants, almost as if it was an afterthought, so that the guest would have a small moment of discovery. A couple in their 40s came in, very well dressed and sophisticated, asking those kind of questions you ask when you clearly dined out quite a bit. Perfect test subjects. Trevor went down to the table, holding the bouquets in one hand, the other slightly cupped, concealing the main attraction. He presented the small bouquet, chatty and joking, his fat Irish humor in full swing. Then he did a little magic trick, slipping the crème fraîche onto the table while distracting the unsuspecting couple with the other hand, pointing at the bouquet and gesturing enthusiastically in explanation. After a split second, the lady discovered our rouse, her eyes fluttering and her jaw literally dropping. She began patting her husband's arm firmly, trying to gesture with her head as she stared down at the plate of crème fraîche. But her husband pursed his lips, a bit irritated that, why are you disturbing me in the middle of such an engaging narration, and just briefly glanced down, not wanting to be impolite to Trevor. It took half a second for his brain to register what he was looking at, and then his eyes were fully and completely fixed on the plate of crème fraîche. And at that exact moment, Trevor said, please go ahead, dip the herbs in crème fraîche with ants. Now, when we present food, there's usually that confident, immediate, sure, yeah, we tried this before, yes. Or something like that. Here, there was silence. 5 seconds went by. Are you okay? Trevor questioned politely, his eyes twinkling. Are there supposed to be ants in the food? The man asked bravely. Don't worry, they're delicious. Go for it, Trevor said. And it was a pure pleasure to watch the couple eat this plate of food, to observe how they discovered the flavor and had a completely new experience. Ever since that day, we have had ants on the menu in many shapes and forms. When we first put it on, we had a huge polemic with the Danish press. Like, it was mega. And then slowly afterwards came the foreign press. It was huge. And there was even one boring weekday, something like that, in Parliament. One of the members of Parliament told or asked the food minister when it was her turn, let's discuss the Noma ants. Is that insane, huh? But what really broke me, actually, what was the hardest moment in all this, was when a big time New York chef called me up on the phone, and I was kind of happy. I thought, yeah, I'm going to get some encouragement here. And he said, dude, man, what the fuck are you doing? Everybody's laughing of you. I was broken. So I thought to myself, I'm going to call up Alex Atala. After all, he was the motherfucker who planted this in my head during the Mad Symposium. I needed a bit of tenderness, some brotherly love. So I called him up in Brazil. Alex, I have ants on the menu. But there was silence, like total silence. And then he said, really? I don't. I could never do that in Sao Paulo. People would kill me. Tuesday, the 6th of September. It's gone from the usual shitty summer to actual autumn in the blink of an eye. The symposium had us so preoccupied with day-to-day things that we lost sight of the bigger picture and neglected to pay attention to our instincts, our intuition telling us to prepare for the shift of the seasons. In normal years, we spend much of August entering autumn's embrace, planning ahead, stocking up on new concepts, asking farms to put some things aside, and so on. You need deep reserves of ideas and products ready for temperamental autumn, which can go from torrential rain to a warm Indian summer to frost at night within a week. As the weather really dictates what we have on our menu, it's like a sucker punch. Blindsided. We can be caught off guard, but that's how it is. You fall asleep for a second, you fall fucking behind. Guys, it's autumn. We all looked at each other. Yeah, it means we have to hurry the fuck up, Lars politely pointed out. All right, let's leave the kitchen. We're going for a ride, I brightly declared, trying to get our blood flowing. Like the weather, we needed a swift change in our mood. We piled into the car. Remember the dried kitchen, the fermented kitchen, and trash cooking. It's all great stuff. Let's snap out of this funk and find the creative rhythm we had leading up to the symposium. But the pep talk didn't do the trick. As we sat there in silence and the Smiths, what difference does it make, blaring out the car radio? Torsten parked next to a rosehip bush and we walked towards the beach, eating some of the last pink flowers, picking some pine needles. I plucked a sprig of sea arrow grass. Autumn is the time of everything, guys. Game is about to be in season. The forest is exploding and the shorelines are still rich. The harvest will soon kick in. Come on, let the ingredients do the work for us. What do we want to work with? Torsten then said confidently, I love hair. Okay, good. And I think we're not done with apples. There's something more there. Let's explore that, I added. We slowly started the conversation, building on a few thoughts, kicking sand around, nibbling on beach horseradish, and spending a few hours fooling around. We drove back, the Meters hand-clapping song now playing, our shoes filled with sand, our hands sticky with wild berries, and our heads full of things to focus on. Fresh walnuts and hazelnuts, the bounty of apples, hare, wild game, and everything they eat. It felt good, as though we were starting to play around again. On the drive back, as the atmosphere loosened up, it made me think about how our creativity really works best when you feel good under pressure, of course. The next one I will read to you is the last entry I will read to you. And it is a little segment of the last entry of the journal. This is a year after I started writing this. And I had actually abruptly stopped writing in the journal at the end of 2011 because we were in huge trouble at the restaurant, like mega. It was this close for Noma closing at the time, for money reasons. If you have chef friends, they will tell you all about this. It's the same for everybody. But then I went on a little vacation because, I promised myself that now I was going to take a vacation each year so that I kept being a happy person. And there I read the journal and I thought that I needed to sort of figure out what was it about then, the whole thing. Monday the 6th of February 2012. It's mind-boggling to think of all the insane hours we wasted speculating about damning and fearing the weather, instead of welcoming it as an enormously important creative catalyst, shaping the restaurant we become. During spring, we're like young fowls, running like it's our first day on grass. Our thoughts flow freely, and the seeds of our best ideas are planted. There, we unleash our intuition, delving into the diversity of colors and textures. With almost too much to fully process, we simply surrender to everything. During summer, we nurture these ideas, our intuitions, and bring some to life. And autumn always offers some of our best moments. We cull the bounty of the season, the big harvest, just before the sucker punch of the long, dark, cold months. Finally comes winter, where things percolate, where we process and digest what just happened over the year. This cycle is who we are. It is stamped into our DNA, and with each passing year becomes a layer richer, like a tree. And come to think of it, I can recall the weather on every good and bad moment we've had over the last year. Take the day Genta, my second child, was born. There was a mild breeze with some scattered showers. And I remember wondering, if these conditions would be good for wild mushrooms? Or the night that mega chef, legendary Michel Bras, ate at Noma. It was fairly cold, a late summer's evening, about 12 degrees, but the kitchen was fucking boiling. Then there was the day when the seed of this journal was planted. One bleak, typically Danish winter morning. The icy winds were howling against the window panes, And Nadine, she worriedly asked me, "Are you okay?" I hope you will enjoy the book. Thank you very much.